Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here for our Cell and Gene Live. As Miles said, I'm Erin Harris, and I'm delighted to introduce to you our expert panelists for today's presentation. Joseph Barberio is the VP Technical Operations at Strand Therapeutics, and Christian Moreno is the Director of Supply Chain Management at Nutcracker Therapeutics. And I'd also like to thank Roche Custom Biotech for partnering with us on this presentation. We have an extremely informative presentation lined up for you, but before we begin, I want to encourage and remind you to submit your questions for our panelists via the Q&A tool. We love hearing from you and want to help you and your team by answering your really important questions. So submit them as you think of them. And we have a lot to cover, so we're going to just jump right in. So for those of you who have attended a Cell and Gene Live event before that I've moderated, you know that I really like to set the stage with an open discussion about the topic at hand. And so I'm going to start with Christian. As it applies to your company, your role, and just basically your overall professional experience, what is, would you say, the current state of the mRNA therapeutics supply chain?
First, I would say it's very exciting, but I think it's very much dependent on the phase of the company. I think R&D, early phase companies will most likely be having an easier time sourcing raw materials, finding a lot of vendors that can support your process. As that transitions over to kind of late phase 2, phase 3, I think in our experience we found it to be quite challenging to ensure we have appropriate GMP grade materials, that we're seeing consistency from our suppliers in terms of the quality of that material. So that's kind of where my opinion on the topic. It really depended on phase, and I think earlier phase companies might be having an easier time.
Yeah, sure. That makes a lot of sense. And Joe, I want to hear from you certainly and what is going on with Strand. Would you agree with what Christian is saying? What's your perspective on kind of the current state of mRNA therapeutics and supply chain?
I think there's a solid foundation in place. I think that people speak the language of mRNA now, or of RNA in general, not just mRNA. There's more guidance. There's more experience in the players out there for the CDMOs and for the vendors that make the materials. There's more clarity on what it takes to get into the clinic from the company standpoint. There's more mRNA-specific tools. Vendors are really putting in a lot of effort into, you don't have to jam your material onto something that was used for monoclonal antibodies. So I think that, as the field progresses, the tools have gotten a lot more specific. And then post-COVID, really, it showed the scale, the quality, the robustness, the globalization of all of these mRNA players. The scale, there's been billions of doses, and that's not just manufacturing, that's raw materials as well. The quality, there's much more high-quality inputs than there were before. Again, more players, and it's global. There's manufacturing facilities virtually every continent now, really not, of course not Antarctica, but there certainly are. It's just global. They're all over the world, and it's I think it's much more accessible.
Good. All right. Well, thank you, Joe. While I have you, so if you're here, you've registered for this topic. You know that the title of this event is from bottleneck to breakthrough, and so to really help us define what it is we're talking about. Joe, talk to us a little bit about what would you say are like the 1 or 2 top bottlenecks that are existing today with regard to mRNA therapeutics?
I think the biggest bottleneck is the sourcing of the DNA. Raw materials in general, but I think that the biggest bottleneck is the sourcing of DNA. It's used in virtually all cell and gene therapies. It's a critical raw material with the longest lead time. So I really have found that finding the slots for clinical grade GMP plasmid can be a challenge and needs to have a lot of work put in up front to plan for. the difficulty that can be that space.
Gotcha. Christian, how about you?
Yeah, I think I would echo that and also add kind of the costs related to plasmid, right? I think, us here at Nutcracker, right, we've developed a manufacturing system that we're very excited to really try to address the PCV kind of market, personalized cancer vaccines. And in that field, you need like very small quantities of plasmid. And something we're running into is, the scale for that level of production is not really available. So, we're going to be buying potentially huge amounts of plasmids that we probably don't need at pretty, high dollar points. So that's been a major challenge that we're trying to kind of work on right now as we kind of prep to really try to attack this PCB market. That's one. And I would say the other is really non-GMP grade reagents. There are some reagents in our process that we currently do not source as GMP, and finding the transition or that path forward to GMP has been a challenge for us as well. There's definitely nothing we can't resolve, but of course it's in partnership with our suppliers and making a commitment on both sides to put the investment in to convert that specific reagent to GMP grade. So I think those two for us are really the two bottlenecks we're addressing today.